you don't sort of draw a light to it and kind of confront it. Okay, so moving on here, I'm reading. Let's see here. He says Daniel J. Goldhagen, author of Hitler's Willing Executioners, writes about the Holocaust and the perils that can be expected when any national government permits hatred of an identifiable minority group to fester without efforts to mitigate or diffuse the hatred. When such widespread hatred goes unchecked in society, the targeted minority group is at risk. The racial problem in America continues to exist because some ignore the problem and others simply do not know what to do. It is to the latter group that I address this book. So he's writing this book for the people that simply don't know what to do. That's what Dr. Anderson is doing. Okay. And so ultimately, what he's basically saying here is that when you're talking about racism in America and racism being unaddressed, you're really dealing with a scenario where black people are in danger because everyone's allowed to hate you and nobody's really stopping that. Okay. So he says in 1994, in my first book, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Search for Power and Economic Justice, I wrote about the structural inequities that became part of our society during slavery and Jim Crow segregation. 7 years after that book was published, these structural inequalities remained unaddressed. Black Labor, White Wealth analyzed the historical relationship between whites and blacks, then tracked how the Western world used laws, policies, and social customs to enrich itself via the unpaid labor of enslaved black Americans. Black Labor, White Wealth documented how legal, political, and economic advantages were passed on to succeeding generations of white Americans. These legacies of white preference effectively maldistributed nearly 100% of this nation's wealth and resources into the hands of the majority society and relegated blacks to a permanently dependent, non-competitive loser status. So let's break that down. He said, but permanently dependent. So let me ask you a question. Give me a yes or no. Do you feel that black people are dependent on whites, or do you think we're independent collectively? Okay, permanently dependent, non-competitive. Can we really compete with whites at a high level? Are black people competitive or non-competitive collectively, not individually, collectively? Are we competitive in the sciences? Do we have a company that can rival Tesla on the building of electric cars? Are we building rocket ships to the moon? Do we have a professional sports league that competes with the NFL? Okay, loser status. So let's think about what that means. Well, think about, let's use the pandemic as an example. Remember in the pandemic, everybody talked about, black people being like sort of the worst off in the pandemic, the worst off economically, the worst off psychologically, the worst off physically, with all the comorbidities kind of landed on us. And to speak to Dr. Anderson's point about inappropriate behavior, I found it very fascinating that right after the pandemic was over, pay attention now, right after the pandemic was over, I saw Amazon, a white owned company, promoting Lizzo's new show called Big Girls. It's Girls is spelled GRRRLS. And it's basically Lizzo with a bunch of other morbidly obese women twerking and just acting a fool and doing all kinds of hoish kinds of things. And it's great. It's funny. It's good comedy. It's for everybody's entertainment. And I said, this is really interesting that we're now glorifying obesity again, when just 2 or 3 months ago, we were talking about how obesity was killing black people during the pandemic. That is what Dr. Anderson might define as inappropriate behavior. Inappropriate behavior is where you're literally cheering on the activities that are getting you killed. You're cheering on the black male rapper who brags about being a gangster and a perpetual baby daddy, right? And throwing all his money away. Then you cry because black people have no money. You cheer on a record label paying somebody like a Lizzo to do all she can to embarrass and humiliate the black woman to make her look like an obese slut. And and then you wonder why black people are dying during the pandemic. Well, because obesity is a real problem in our community. Diabetes is a real problem. We have a lot of these issues. We eat a lot of that salty, fatty food that's killing us. And we think that obesity is good. Nobody confronts it. So therefore, when people are dying, everybody starts feeling sorry for black people again. So I'm sitting here just trying to say to you, and here's how the mechanism works. So when I bring that point up, when I brought it up 2 years ago, I was vilified by white media. Again, white media didn't ask me what I said. They didn't ask me to elaborate. They didn't interview me. They just said, okay, we're going to do our best to shut down the voices of Black people that want what's best for the community, and we're going to amplify the voices of Black people that want what's worse for the Black community. So ultimately, you have a tag team. You have Black people working against the interests of Black people, and you have white people working against the interests of Black people, because there ain't no way you can sit around here and explain to me how the glorification of obesity is keeping Black people alive, right? Maybe there's a nicer way to say it. I don't know. But I haven't heard anybody even try to say it in a nicer way. Maybe somebody could have came along and said, well, really what Dr. Watkins is trying to say, he can be a little bit of a jerk. He can sound a little bit like a jerk sometimes because he's very direct. So what he's really trying to say is boom, boom, boom. Nobody did that. Everybody said, oh, you go, girl. That's Black excellence, girl. Black girl magic, y'all. I'm sorry. I was hearing from a lot of Black women who didn't feel that was magical. They don't enjoy seeing themselves celebrated as an ignorant cartoon character. They just don't enjoy that, right? So ultimately, I said, it's my job to say these things, but remember that just that one dynamic is a microcosmic example of how so much in society is working against your intellectual, economic, and political progress. Do you understand what I'm saying? When someone tries to really move the needle forward in a positive way, white media, white educational systems, white corporations tend to shut that down because there has been a historical tradition of keeping you in your place. Let me keep reading. In our social democracy, many have forgotten or simply do not know that the Federalist Papers, the foundation of the Constitution, laid out the responsibility of the majority to protect the rights of the minority in a majority rule social democracy. Thus, it is the responsibility of the white majority to protect the rights of the Black minority. Not surprisingly, that protection has not occurred. Instead, the white majority has made the Black race a permanent, involuntary minority and has systematically denied generations of Blacks sufficient means to protect their own rights and compete in mainstream society. Powernomics, the national plan to empower Black America, proposes a plan of action for Blacks to create a new, prosperous, and empowered community that builds upon the yet unrealized competitive advantages of Black America. The economic, political, and educational action steps, principles, strategies, and models that are offered in this book are based on analysis of the complex web of racial monopolies and other structural impediments that continue to drive Blacks deeper into an underclass structure. They also come from a comparative study of wealth and powerful minority groups that have lifted themselves into competitive positions within the majority society. So when we bring up Jewish people in this space, I want y'all to understand I'm not bringing them up to complain about them. I'm bringing them up to study them. I'm going to bring them up so we can look at the blueprint, because a shout out to that community for knowing how to use education and sovereignty and the power of wealth to have an amount of power that is entirely disproportionate to their percentage in the population. I think that is something we need to study like lab. I mean, we need to study that like little scientists. Like, okay, exactly what did they do here? Seriously, because there is a solution. There is a pathway. You can study Asian culture. You can study Nigerian culture. Now, every culture has its strengths. Even African American culture, we have our strengths too. There are people that study us for our strength, right? So you study those things. That's how you learn how to build the right culture in your family. So let's keep going. The economic, political, and educational action steps, principles, strategies, and models that are offered in this book are based on analysis of the complex web of racial monopolies and other structural impediments that continue to drive Blacks deeper into an underclass structure. They also come from a comparative study of wealthy and powerful minority groups that have lifted themselves into competitive positions within the majority society. This book is a plan specifically intended for Black America because no other group will support the elevation of Blacks to a position of group prosperity, respect, and competitiveness. So what he's saying right there is stop waiting on white people. Stop thinking white folks are going to save you. Stop going around giving lectures. You got these scholars that run around giving lectures to white people on how to be what do they call it? Anti-racist, how to be an anti-racist or something or whatever. I guess that's okay. I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm not making fun of people, like Kendu Isaacs does that, right? He wrote a whole book about it, and God bless him for that. I mean, he seems like a good guy. I was actually in his book toward the end, and I'm not making fun of him at all. But I'm not trying to talk to them. I'm really trying to talk to you. So maybe we tag team. Kendu, you go talk to them, and you go get your people straight. I'm going to get my people straight. And then that way we can meet in the middle. How about that? So let's keep going. It is not in the best interest of others to help blacks become more competitive. So the basic idea is that's laid out here is that nobody's going to do it for you. They're just not. They might help. You can lay demands on them, right? You can say things like, look, I'm not voting for you unless you show me that you're a true ally by backing a reparations plan, right? There are ways you can do that, right? Put that pressure on them. But at the end of the day, it's going to have to be done by you. And also, it is not natural. It is not in a competitive man's nature to help another man compete with him directly. It's just not typically going to happen. If you and I are fighting over the same piece of chicken and we're both hungry, then we're gonna fight over that piece of chicken. You're gonna have to learn how to fight. Okay. And a lot of your fight was taken out of you. Your fight was replaced by fear. And that was drilled into you during slavery. Let's keep going. Thus, it is up to Black America to pull itself up by its bootstraps. Empowerment will not happen by chance, accident, or wishes. It will require purposeful planning. Powernomics, the national plan to empower Black America, picks up where Black labor, white wealth left off. It presents a conceptual framework and a plan to lead Black America to political and economic self-sufficiency and competitiveness. He says by the year 2005. Okay, so let's scratch that out. About 17 years late on that deadline. The term Powernomics combines the concepts of power and economics. Power is the ability to get things done despite the resistance and opposition of others. Let me read it again. Power is the ability to get things done despite the resistance and opposition of others. Power is the ability to get things done despite the resistance and opposition of others. Power is the ability to get things done despite the resistance and opposition of others. It doesn't say that power is the ability to get things done when white people are cheering for you. It doesn't say power is the ability to get things done when they decide to show up and help you. It doesn't say power is the ability to get things done when you get everybody else's permission. It says power is the ability to get things done when the opposition is trying to whoop your ass. That's what it is. And a football game is an example of power. When the Super Bowl was played, it's crazy. I don't remember who was in the Super Bowl. What was it? The Rams and who else was in there? It was the Rams and what was the other team? Somebody tell me the Bengals. The Rams and the Bengals, right? The Bengals were not going to give the Rams anything. The Bengals were not going to assist the Rams on any level. They were not going to give them any strategies. They were not going to help them get the ball down the field. They were going to provide them no assistance at all. They did everything in their power to stop the Rams from winning the Super Bowl, but they won it anyway because they have real power. They didn't show up and say, hey, every time we try to throw the ball down the field, they always tackle us. That ain't right. That's what black folks. That's what we do. Every time we try to build a Black Wall Street, they come and burn it down. Well, then you build again. Every time we try to start a business, white people don't want to never help us, and they always talk bad about us. They can kiss my whole entire black ass because I'm building anyway. Every time we wanna teach ourselves, they get mad. They get mad because every time we try to educate ourselves and they don't, and they say bad stuff about us and they be hurting our feelings and everything. That doesn't apply. You're not playing the power game. You're not playing the power game. That's not the energy that you need in order to have real power. When you go up the hill shooting, somebody's gonna shoot back. I've told you guys that story about where I had the conversation with that billionaire I told you about, who's a libertarian. He's not Democrat, Republican, none of that. And he checked out the stuff that I was doing. And he said, "Yeah, I like what you're doing for black people. I think it's really great." I said, "Oh, well, thank you, man. I appreciate it." And he said, "Well, one of the things you should understand," and I understood this, but I was listening. I mean, he's a billionaire. He's probably got something good to say. Is he said that when you really confront power, when you run up the hill with your gun out, and you're really fighting the power is going to shoot back. And they're going to shoot back. And you just have to accept that as the game that you've chosen to play. So whenever they do something to stop you or to harm you, crying about it is not going to fix it. Crying about it is only celebrating what they did. It's only letting them know that they're better than you. I mean, imagine if every time the Cincinnati Bengals tackled the Rams, they would say, "Oh, it hurts. You hurt my feelings. You broke my leg and I can't play no more." I'm telling you, y'all mean, right? That would be crazy. It would be ridiculous to do that in a football game. So for us in general, you have to understand that when you play the game of power, people aren't going to like you. People are going to do everything they can to distract you. They're going to call you every kind of N word imaginable. If you ever want to be called the N word, then go get rich. If you ever want to be called a nigga, then go get a good education and go kick ass and take names. Go dominate, and then you'll get called every kind of N word in the book. They're going to call you every name they can come up with so they can distract you and throw you off your game. When you become a threat, believe me, you're going to be every kind of nigga imaginable because they're going to be mad because you're showing up ready to compete. That you will get no sympathy, no support, no handouts, no hand up, no nothing. They're going to sabotage you at every available turn. They're going to play the game as dirty as they possibly can, and you got to get up and keep moving. You must do that. The Vietnam War, I watched an 11-hour documentary about the Vietnam War because my father was in Vietnam, and that's part of what made him into the man that he is now. I call my father the juggernaut because he ain't scared of nothing. He don't stop for nothing. He's a survivor to the fullest. He walked away from heroin. I mean, this man is a strong man. And so I just wanted to study the Vietnam War to understand, like, why were we there? What did my father go through? What was that like? And I remember that they interviewed both sides of the Vietnam War, the Viet Cong in the north and the Viet Minh in the south. And they talked to them 30, 40 years later about what happened during the war. So check this out. Here's one thing that's really interesting that happened during the Vietnam War. Shout out to every veteran that's in here, all the soldiers. I know a lot of soldiers come in this space, and I love every one of you. I have a lot of respect for what you do. So one of the Viet, one thing that they mentioned was that the Americans were so determined to win the Vietnam War. We were so confident that we were going to win that they literally dropped more bombs on northern Vietnam than all the bombs that were dropped on every country in World War II combined. So they dropped more bombs on tiny little northern Vietnam than all the bombs that were dropped during all of World War II on every country by every other country combined. It's crazy, right? And so they would see things like the Ho Chi Minh Trail and these bridges they would build to get their supplies down to their troops. So they would just blow up the bridge. But then they were confused because they would blow up the bridge and the bridge would be back up the next day. Or the road would be clear and they'd be still moving their supplies. And so they asked them 30 years later, they said, how did y'all do that? Like, what was going on? Like, they were dropping all these bombs and blowing up every single transport route you had, and you would still be up and operational in a day or two. And you know what the guy said? Very simple. He said, we had a saying, if they blow it up, we will rebuild. If they blow it up again, we will rebuild again. And I said, I'll be damned if that ain't something that can benefit Black people. I mean, think about that. Think about Black Wall Street. Think about how often we mourn the fact that they burned down Black Wall Street. I've had people come up and say to me, why should we build another Black Wall Street? They just gonna burn it down. Well, maybe we can learn from the Vietnamese people who said, if you burn it down, we're gonna rebuild. You burn it down again, we're gonna rebuild again. That's what you do. That's called persistence. That's all that is. It's the simple idea of saying, I will never give up. Persistence will help you win every battle in your entire life. That'll help you overcome damn near any problem you have right now. I guarantee you, most of those problems can be solved by what I teach my daughter, the 3P philosophy. I don't give her complex lessons on life and everything. I just give her simple rules that will make a big difference. So I walk in, I say, what are the 3 P's of success? She says, practice, preparation, and persistence. So that means you practice. If you want to get good at something, you practice and you practice more and you keep practicing until you get good at it. Preparation means that most problems are best solved when you prevent the problem in the first damn place. Preparation, right? If you're dealing with baby mama problems, well, pick a different baby mama. Stop sleeping with raggedy women that just walk by because she got a nice booty, or with some guy just because he bought you a cupcake and a bag of Cheetos. Next thing you know, you raising his baby. You got to think things through. Preparation. Preparation is the key to success. Education. You educate yourself when you're young. You have a good life when you're older. It's not complicated. I said that when I was 19 to my friends and I was in college. I'm like, hey, man, if we don't study, we're not gonna have a good life. They're like, nah, man, I'm gonna go get drunk, man. Let's go get high, man. I'm just sitting, nothing, just chilling, man. I'm just over here chilling. Okay, well, you're gonna be wait till we get about 40, and let's look at how different our lives are, because I'm gonna get ready for the future. I'm gonna prepare for the future. I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm not putting anybody or anyone on a high horse. I'm not putting myself on a high horse at all. I'm just saying it was simple. 2 plus 2 is 4. If you don't prepare, you ain't gonna be ready. Seriously, conversations about reacting to bad things that happen are far more interesting to Black people than conversations about preparing for what might happen. Ain't nobody interested in getting prepared for the problem, but everybody's mad when the problem comes home and the chickens come home to roost and the world is kicking you in your ass. Oh my God, this happened. I can't pay the rent. Pookie got shot. Blah, 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 blah. We are the ultimate reactors to everything. We react to everything. So reactive thinking tends to dominate proactive thinking. It's not your fault. A lot of it is driven by the fact that you were trained to be a victim. You were trained to be a victim. Empowered people prepare. Empowered people say, hey, if I get ready, if I stay ready, I don't have to get ready. So I'm going to get ready. So I'm going to be ready. Right? That's what empowered people do. You were not trained to be empowered. You were trained to sit there like, I don't want to read no book, man. I want to get on my iPhone and read, World Star Hip Hop, or watch World Star Hip Hop videos or whatever. So you don't prepare. You don't get an education. You don't save your money. You don't want to invest. You don't want to talk about the future. You don't want to make plans. And then when life smacks you upside the head, you're crying about how hard it is to be Black and how hard your life is. Well, you don't go through what I'm going through. You ain't been through what I'm going through. You don't know what it's like to be in my situation. Maybe I do know what it's like to be in your situation, which is why I prepared to not be in your situation. Some of y'all got relatives like that who never ever want to do anything constructive or preparatory for their lives, but yet have every damn problem in the world and then expect you to feel sorry for them. They're waiting around for the sympathy. That's all they got. That's all they got. Well, I'm trying to tell you, just from a simple logical standpoint, the reason that books like Powernomics are great, the reason this is a great book is because he's using a simple word that you don't always hear used as much as it should be in our community. It's called plan. Make a goddamn plan, and then you'll be ready. What is your plan? Ladies, if you meet a man and he wants to take you out and he's looking good, he's driving a nice car, just sit and ask him, like, what is your plan? What is your plan for the next 5 years? What is your 10-year plan? And if it takes him more than 15 seconds to answer, then you got your answer already. That's not the man to be with. The man you want is the man with the plan. If the man ain't got no plan and he's not executing the plan, that man's plan is to create nothing less than complete chaos in your life, because the world comes at you hard when you're not prepared. And also, white supremacy and racism and structural racism in America was carefully planned and designed. Almost everything that was created to harm Black people was designed, it was planned, it was prepared. I read to you all last week or the week before, I don't remember which week it was. I read to y'all 85 laws, just 85 of them. 85 laws that were passed specifically to ensure the containment and the control of Black people. That was just white people making a plan. Now, I'm not sitting there trying to say white people are better, they're smarter, and nothing like that. No, but they made a plan. They planned all of this. When they gentrified your neighborhood that you grew up in, and they got the dog park and the Whole Foods and the Starbucks, and the little white girls are now in the roughest part of Brooklyn, where only the pimps and the hustlers and the dope dealers were at in the 1980s. Oh, they planned that. That was part of it. They had board meetings and whiteboards and PowerPoint presentations in the 1980s where they said, we're gonna go take over this part of Brooklyn. Brooklyn's mine now. Remember that? Remember Michael Shea said Brooklyn's mine now, right? So basically, the question is, what is your plan? What is your plan? Let's keep going. Reading Powernomics page. We're on Powernomics. We're still in the intro, so we're very early in the book. We finished Black Labor, White Wealth. Again, if you want to get the recordings of all the lectures we did so far, I'm gonna put one in there every week. Every week we do book club. I save all of that. You can go to drboycebookclub.com if you'd like to get copies of all that. And also, we mentioned the convention earlier. If you want to see more and learn more about the All Black National Convention, what we have planned, feel free to go to allblacknationalconvention.com. It's going to be at the end of October in Charlotte, October 28th through the 30th. Okay, so let me get as much out as I can because my voice is going away. All right. The facts and recommendations presented in this book are sometimes stark, bitter medicine because Powernomics is like a strong tonic intended to stir to action and guide those people who are motivated to help Black America in fundamental ways. So remember, Dr. Anderson says here that power is the ability to get things done despite the resistance and opposition of others, not the permission of others, the resistance of others. Economics is the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and wealth. Powernomics then is the ability of Blacks to pool resources and power to produce, distribute, and consume in a way that creates goods and wealth that Black people control. So there's some key words in this sentence. Powernomics then is the ability of Blacks to pool resources and power. So you're pulling together your power and your resources to produce, distribute, and consume in a way that creates goods and wealth that Black people control. So you're not talking about just building a Black Wall Street. You're talking about building a Black-owned Wall Street. There's a difference. We spoke about this when I was speaking in Detroit. Those of you who were at the mini conference yesterday know what I'm talking about. A Black Wall Street is a place where Black faces are present and commerce is being done. Well, you've had Black Wall Street since forever. You can go to prison and see a Black Wall Street. You can go to an HBCU and see a Black Wall Street. You can go to a public school system and see a Black Wall Street because there are plenty of Black faces and lots of businesses being done. The problem with those examples, in my view, is that Black people are the commodities in those transactions. We are not the beneficiaries in those transactions. There are lots of companies out here that have tons of Black employees where most of that wealth is being sucked out of the Black community and sent back to some corporate boardroom in Toronto or something. Popeye's Chicken might be one good example, right? So ultimately, you don't just want a Black Wall Street. You need a Black-owned Wall Street where the resources are controlled by Black people and can be utilized in such a way that we're able to bring them back to our community. So ultimately, it's not just skill set, it's also mindset that matters, right? And so skill set is important. We go to school, we learn a lot of things, we got to learn the right skills, how to build and all these other things. But mindset is important because your mindset determines what you're going to do with that skill. It determines your value system, right? Your value system shapes. If I get a gun in my hand, right, is it bad for a man to have a gun or good for a man to have a gun? Well, it depends. If whether I'm a protector or if I'm a killer. If I'm a murderer, then me having a gun is not a good thing. But if I'm a defender of freedom and fairness and family, then that is a wonderful thing, right? So ultimately, that education, if it's done right, again, I believe Black people should be educating Black people. You send your kids to the white school, whatever, if you want to, but educate them when you get home. Give them the real education when they get home. And once you get that education, you have that weapon in your hand. And remember, education is also an indoctrination. So when you're indoctrinating your children, somebody's going to do it. Might as well be you. You indoctrinate them with not just the skill set, but the mindset. You give them the gun and you teach them where to aim it so that when they gain control of resources, they'll know exactly where to put them. Okay, because we have too many powerful Negroes who don't know what to do with their power. We have too many people. You have some people. I sit here and I look at. I'll be talking to some rapper who's got 20 million followers on Instagram. And I'll be thinking, man, do you know what I would do for the Black community if I had an Instagram page with 20 million followers on it? Do you know how much education I could deliver with 20 million Instagram followers? I mean, I got 335,000, 358,000, whatever the number is. I'm not complaining about that. But can you imagine if I had a page as big as, Kim Kardashian or Kanye or somebody like that? I mean, that would be awesome, right? Right. So ultimately, it's one of those things where the mindset must match the skill set. You must, you get the power and know what to do with the power. Okay, so let me keep going. So much of my personal inspiration for writing Powernomics came from the readers of Black Labor, White Wealth and people who thanked me for explaining the problems and presenting principles that should be used in crafting solutions. They then asked me to take one more step and blend my experiences and research into a program of action that individuals and groups can follow to empower their communities. Powernomics provides that missing link between the historical analysis of the problems facing Blacks and the strategies needed to correct those problems. This is not a book on how to succeed in white corporate America or how to invest one's personal funds for retirement. I'm glad he said that. Nor is it a volume of warm and fuzzy motivational stories about personal triumphs and successes and how to improve one's relationships with the opposite sex. This book is about a people surviving and prospering. The tone is direct and simple. I make no pretense of being objective. This book makes moral judgments and predicts that racial disasters will occur unless this nation seriously addresses the historical injustice imposed on Black Americans. This book has two premises. First, those who desire to create effective solutions to a problem must understand the nature and history of the problem. Second, Black America needs a national plan with how-to strategies in order to move into political and economic competitiveness with America's mainstream society and its various ethnic subgroups. Admittedly, Powernomics runs counter to the conventional thinking of visible and successful Blacks in America today. Though the wealth and power gap between Blacks and non-Blacks is widening, visible and successful Blacks remain committed to protecting their own personal comfort zone by avoiding association with anything that is identifiably Black. Today's Black leaders in many cases display some of the inappropriate behavior discussed in this book. And while many of these leaders are personal acquaintances and friends, it has been their choice to give top priority to working not for Black people, but for minorities, women, poor people, people of color, the handicapped, and newly arriving immigrants. The failure of visible and successful Blacks to appropriately lead the race leaves 40 million Black Americans in a leadership crisis. So you don't have leadership because the people that they claim to be your leaders are not really leading. The Powernomics plan is offered to the nation in hopes of saving Black America. It is a synthesis of my experiences in government, business, research, and academia. It is nearly unnecessarily subjective, contains few citations, and frequently uses first-person references. It is not intended to be an academic recitation of facts or of other authors' opinions. It is offered more informally as a roadmap with clearly marked milestones. It will not answer all your questions once you have finished this book. If you are not motivated to use this plan to help build a more competitive and independent Black America, then simply lay it down and continue doing what you normally do. However, for those who want to help an unjustly treated and forgotten people, welcome aboard. Accept the reality that the legacies of slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery still exist in various forms of structural racism. Then try some of the countermeasures this book recommends. The probability is high, even at this late hour, that with deliberate actions, Black people can still become a competitive and self-sufficient group in America. It was in the spirit of that possibility that this national plan was written. The following section provides summaries of the 8 chapters in this book. So what I'm going to do is go through some of the summaries of the different chapters so we can get an overview of the book. We're going to start digging into chapter 1 next week, okay? All right. Let me catch my breath. Sorry, my voice. See, I told you guys in the beginning, my voice is kind of leaving me, but I'm gonna keep going because I really want to do this. All right. So let's see. Oh, by the way, I want to remind everybody this week we're doing an NFT event in the Black Business School. It's totally free. It's Tiala Kidd. Her family's made a lot of money with NFTs, a few $100,000. So she's partnered with the Black Business School to pretty much get you informed on the latest and greatest in the NFT space. So if you'd like to join, just go to boycewatkins.com. There should be a link to join the NFT event. I think it's tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken. So feel free to go to boycewatkins.com. You can see what we have going on in the Black Business School. All right. Chapter 1 paints a picture of the depth and magnitude of Black American socioeconomic predicament. It examines the collective inherited advantages of being white and the collective inherited disadvantages of being Black. It describes how 4 centuries of slavery, Jim Crow segregation, and benign neglect locked Blacks into the lowest societal strata while maldistributing nearly 100% of this nation's wealth and resource power into the hands of a pecking order of European and other ethnic groups. The socioeconomic disparities between the races have evolved into modern-day monopolies protected by structural racism, inheritance laws, immigration, and other public policies. These established monopolies not only guarantee white society an advantaged lifestyle, but they also predetermine racial winners and losers in a supposedly open and competitive society. So they lie and they tell you that society is open and fair and competitive, and really you're bringing all these people in. They have all these advantages. One good way to see structural racism right in your face every day is I want you to go to the downtown area of any city that you live in or city that you visit. And I want you to look around at all these big buildings, and I want you to ask yourself how much these buildings cost. Many of these buildings are $100 million buildings, $200 million buildings. Probably some of them probably cost over $1 billion, I'm sure. I don't know how much all of them cost. But what you'll see is that none of these buildings are owned by black people. And there's wealth all around you. There's land, there's valuable real estate all around you. We don't own any of that. And it's not because your ancestors didn't want it. They just were blocked and killed when they tried to obtain it, or when they did obtain it, it was taken away. That's why the reparations argument is kind of a silly argument at this point. There's no question about whether or not they owe you the money. The only question is, are you going to make them pay it? Or are you going to keep being nice, letting them scare you into voting for whoever the hell they put in front of you? Or are you going to stand up and say, look, I'll vote for you when you vote for me. I'll support you when you support me. I'll do for you when you do for me. What's wrong with that reciprocity? What's wrong with saying that in the spirit of so-called equality and fairness, or whatever it is you think I'm supposed to believe in, I expect you to treat me the way I treat you. How dare you tell me to do something for you that you would never do for me? It's astonishing to me how many black people think that that is such a radical idea. There ain't no radical about demanding that you be treated with decency. Let's keep going. Next, the socioeconomic disparities between the races have evolved into modern day monopolies protected by structural racism, inheritance laws, and immigration. We already said that. Chapter 2 introduces the rationale for the Powernomics economic empowerment culture, group vision, and related enabling paradigms, ethno-aggregation, and vertical integration. This chapter discusses the importance of having group self-interest and a sense of group competition. The paradigms of ethno-aggregation and vertical integration provide blacks with tools to alter their mindset and transform their traditional way of seeing, thinking, and behaving in regard to racial matters. Clearly understanding the empowerment vision of Powernomics and its paradigms can help Black Americans make decisions that are in the group's best interest. This chapter also explains how the application of these paradigms as conceptual templates can increase consistency and efficiency in race-related decision-making. Ethno-aggregation and vertical integration can result as conceptual cookie cutters that can be used to build racial unity and place outdated, passive civil rights and integration ideologies. So basically, he's saying that the other methods are too passive, they're outdated, they're not really working. This is a little more assertive. Chapter 3 focuses on the importance of community and the role that communities play in fostering competitive group politics and group economics. It identifies 3 important elements that Black people need in order to transform their residential neighborhoods from mere geographical groupings into functional communities. Once Blacks form real communities, they can then use them as repositories for storing their history, culture, wealth, income, businesses, security, and sense of peoplehood. This chapter lists the steps to build real Black communities and discusses how a community builds its radius of trust, cooperation, and accountability. It also stresses the importance of marking and closing Black communities. So you're not letting everybody just move in and get a bag, right? Let's keep going. A major part of this chapter examines 2 of the most pernicious social systems devised to control human beings and destroy their sense of community. The first system of meritorious manumission, often called Willie Lynchism, was imposed on Blacks in the early 1700s. This social conditioning process is compared with a system of brainwashing that was imposed on American soldiers and Korean prisoners in prisoner of war camps during the early 1950s. The techniques and results of both systems were nearly identical and engineered behaviors into the target populations that destroyed group unity and reduced the communities to groups of people who functioned as individuals. I'm going to stop for a minute on that. I want us to marinate on that. Communities to groups of people who function as individuals. So you take the fist and you break it into 5 fingers. Each finger can be easily broken, right? So you have, a whole lot of people, that walk around saying I can do it all by myself, right? I don't even need his daddy to help me raise the baby. I don't need no black woman. What the hell, black women? They all they are is gold diggers and right? Or people saying that they're trying to build their businesses by themselves. They're trying to run the whole damn company by themselves, and you're not succeeding at that. What I'm trying to say is that economics is a team sport. That if you look around and you look at the richest people in the room, the richest groups, they're usually collectives of people. I've invested in companies with thousands of other investors. There have been things that I invest in where literally there are literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of shareholders that all pool their money together to do something that one individual cannot do. Even when they asked Jeff Bezos, they said, "Do you feel guilty for the fact that you're worth $120 billion?" And he said, "No." He said, "Because Amazon's worth $1 trillion. That means I made other people $880 billion richer." So you got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Amazon investors who all came together and were who rode that ship with him to the top, right? So when you talk about things that are happening in our community, like I see somebody that had mentioned the FBA movement and stuff like that. Um, I think all these movements are fine. I just think you got to always ask yourself, who are my allies? Who are my true allies in this fight? And I would encourage you that when you decide that somebody is your ally, somebody has your best interest at heart, don't go picking fights with them. You know, when you ask me about the FBA movement and stuff like that, one of the things I would say be careful about is excluding everybody else. You know, alienating people who want to help. You know, I'm a believer in the diaspora. I'm not a believer in. I believe that as a Black American, we have specific rights, absolutely. But if you are from Nigeria and you understand why I have a beef with the American government and you support that, well, then guess what? You're my brother too. I'm one third Nigerian. I'm connected to that also, right? So I personally think that you have to really be clear about who your friends are and who your enemies are. But everybody's got to have some friends in your mind, or at some point when you get a chance. Maybe one exercise you can do is make a list of your teammates. You know, make a list of your teammates in your life. You know, thank you, Tracy. I am going to do that. I'm definitely going to talk to my wife about some honey and lemon on my throat. Um, but figure out who your teammates are. Who are your teammates? Like if I was writing down my teammates, I say, okay, I got my wife, I have my brother, I have some people that I work with, I have you guys. You all are my teammates, right? Who are your teammates in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish? And if you don't have teammates, then that might mean that your next skill set could be related to relationship management, building healthy relationships, maintaining healthy relationships, and minimizing toxic relationships. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Chapter 4 urges change in the traditional role of schools in educating Black children. Specifically, this chapter advises Black Americans to take control of the governance of their neighborhood schools and redesign them around the needs, interests, and goals of Black America. The premise of this chapter is that schools are producing exactly what they were designed to produce: a marginally trained Black laborer capable of taking orders and using his or her physical strength to entertain, enrich, protect, and comfort the majority white society. So the schools are not going to empower you. We've already discussed that. I think you probably heard me say that by now. Since schools were never intended to educate Black children to be self-sufficient, independent, and competitive, this chapter argues that they must begin to receive an education that is reality-based and teaches them to live, work, and compete in a pluralistic society. Black people need to educate Black children. Implementation of the Powernomics National Plan requires that Black Americans educate their youth to use their intellectual resources to help the group. To accomplish this end, schools in Black communities must close down like an automobile assembly factory, getting ready to produce new models, retool, and reopen only after they are ready to accept a new role in which educational goals, curricula, teaching methods, governance, and funding have been crafted in alignment with the National Empowerment Plan for Black America. Black communities must also inspire and demand political changes on a local level regarding the methods of school governance and funding. Thus, this chapter discusses the role that education should play to free new generations of Black minds from the old social conditioning so that Black children can gain the skills, social unity, and human resources to compete with children from all other groups. These schools are throwing Black children away, absolutely throwing them away. Hundreds of thousands of Black kids graduate, can't even can't even do the cash register at McDonald's. They need to see pictures of the food to be able to add up the price. They can't even read the word Big Mac, right? Can't even add 10 plus 10, right? It's unbelievable. If you ask a lot of kids, one day go to like a recent high school graduate and just say something like, "What is 10% of 200?" Right? What I want y'all to answer me in the chat. What's 10% of 200? If I had $200, then I'm gonna give you 10%. Well, how much will I be giving you? Thank you, Ryan and Mozella and Gary and Jerry. Right, $20. I want you to do that test. Go talk to an 18 or 19-year-old if you don't win somewhere. Hopefully it's not your child. And just say, if you gave me $200 and I gave you 10% of that back, how much would I be giving you? And I swear to God, you got at least a 70% chance of them not being able to even do that basic calculation. Well, if you can't even tell me what 10% of $200 is, how the hell are you going to do business at a high level? How the hell are you going to compete with Silicon Valley and these kids coming out of Stanford and building these? How are you going to compete with that? I mean, seriously, 10% of $200 is easy. That's basic. Right? If you didn't know it, I'm not making fun of you, right? I don't think I'm making fun of you if it stumped you. Some of us get a little intimidated by math, and so I'm not making fun of anybody. But my Lord Jesus, what are they teaching those kids in school? And how come they all come out knowing what it means to be gay and that a man can be a woman and all this other stuff, but they can't tell you what 10% of 200 is? I don't care if you taught them that a man can be a woman. I'm not even mad about that. Do that. That's fine. But my Lord, teach them the basic stuff first. Give them the damn skills first. Teach them how to spell first. Teach them how to write first. Teach them how to survive first. They are dumping black children out onto the world after school the same way they dump the slaves out into society with no skill, no options, no nothing. They're doing the exact same thing to black children that come out of school that they did to the slaves. The slaves had nothing. They had no assets, no resources, no skills, nowhere to go. And so they just found they did to them what they're doing to your children. Well, if you ain't got no purpose in society and you ain't getting up going to work every day, where are they going to send you? Where do you think they try to send a young black male who isn't benefiting them in some way, who's just out there? The jail. They say, okay, well, if we can't make money from you over here, we're going to make money from you over there. So ultimately, that's the system that you're seeing. So I would encourage you to identify that and say, okay, how am I going to get my kids away from some of this? Right? So for some of you, you may go all the way to the limit and just completely homeschool. I will support you on that. And I'm here to tell you, you can do that. You certainly have the ability to do that. Get your child on the internet. There's a million videos on YouTube. There's online educational platforms that would do a better job educating your child than the school will anyway. Make sure they get around other kids so they're not too weird, right? Because homeschool kids, if they're around adults all the time, they'll come out acting like a 50-year-old when they're 9. So you don't want that, right? So give them the socialization and all that stuff. Let the little boy go meet a girl, whatever it is that you want to do. But still, you can do this yourself. And also, when your children come home from that school, understand education is also indoctrination. Education was designed to not give you skill because they're not doing that. It's to give you a value system. It's to tell you what's important in the world. And that's where a lot of white supremacy is rooted. That's where you learn to be a white supremacist. A lot of black people are white supremacists. You learn that because you went to a school where all your white teachers told you how wonderful white people are and won't even tell you about Marcus Garvey or Claude Anderson. Or when they bring up Malcolm X, they say, yeah, he was a racist, right? But Martin Luther King, he was a nice guy. He believed in peace. But Malcolm, he was a racist, right? And to tell you the truth, I remember doing that. I remember being in high school and saying to my father when I was like 14 or something, yeah, Malcolm X was racist. And my father, I thought he wanted to knock me through the wall. Thank God he straightened me out because I didn't know. I just heard from my white teacher at school that Malcolm X was racist, right? So ultimately, you've got to be careful about who you allow into the brains of your child. They are going to try to molest the brain of your children. Don't let them do it. Last paragraph I'm going to read. Then we'll be done for tonight. All right. Chapter 5 offers a new economic model to convert black neighborhoods into core economic engines for building wealth and practicing group economics. It highlights how blacks have remained outside this nation's economic booms and prosperity for centuries. An endless influx of European ethnic immigrants have entered this nation as first-class citizens and joined the majority white society in the economic suppression and exploitation of black Americans. So they come to America, they've been here 10 minutes, and they line them up in the black neighborhoods, and they set up shop, and next thing you know, they're getting a piece of black money too. So you are the land of milk and honey for people that are coming from other countries. This chapter points out how black Americans are violating every known principle of group economics, the growing wealth and income inequalities between blacks and whites, how ethnic groups build niche businesses, how whites and ethnic groups boycott black businesses, the capital and brain drain from black communities, racism in our immigration policies, and the self-inflicted damage of non-economic integration and civil rights. that's what we're going to talk about in chapter 5. So there's more here. I think that we've read enough for today. We've been in here for a while. I want you to kind of think about what's been said today. And we're going to do this again. We do this every week, every Wednesday at 8:30. You can go to blackkeystogreatness.com if you haven't signed up, or you can go to boycewatkins.com. The link to the book club is there. Um, I can't wait. I look forward to it. And we're going to read every single page of this whole entire book. And after we finish Dr. Anderson, but it might take us a year. It might take us a year because this book's a little bit bigger than Black Labor, White Wealth, but we will cover every single inch of this book. And then we're going to go to the Black History Reader, which is another heavy book Dr. Anderson wrote. So we're literally going to spend probably the next 3 or 4 years reading Dr. Anderson books. And I'm going to read them out loud to you because I believe to the core of my soul that Black people can be the educational system for Black people. We have the internet. I am in your living room right now because you invited me in and we are connecting. We don't need nobody to do this for us. This is what we do. All they got to do is not break up the internet connection, right? That's it. I don't know how to create an internet connection. But outside of that, we don't need their help for nothing. I don't need your knowledge. I don't need your books. I don't need your scholars. I don't need your teachers. I don't need your system. I don't need none of that crap. You can shove it up your butt because we got this. We got this. All right. So anyway, guys, I'm going to go. I will see you all next week. I love you very much. Reminder, if you want to take a look at the All Black National Convention, you can go to my website, boycewatkins.com, and the link is right there. Also, tomorrow we do our NFT event. If you want to join us for that, it's free. Just go to boycewatkins.com. The NFT link is right there as well. T.I. the kid's going to join us, and there'll be more stuff happening in the Black Business School. And by the way, if you live in Detroit, I'm coming back to Detroit. Herb Strather and Gary Shelton, two OGs in the business space that I just respect so much, asked me to come back after we went last time. I know it was sold out, so the wedding spaces. Well, this time I'm gonna go back, and we're actually gonna try to have a live stream there if we can. So if you live in the D or in the area, you want to fly in, feel free. I'll let you guys know when that's gonna happen. Okay. All right. So have a good night. God bless you. I love you, and I wish you very, very well. Stay strong, be Black, and I'll see you soon. Take care now. Peace.